Hello. Let's finish up on chapter 19 today. And then I'll probably put a little chapter 20 on our quiz, but this session will just be on chapter 19. So this would be quiz 6 or 7. I'll have to look at the numbers. It's the next one, whatever it is. And we're going to begin with review of the suffixes of pinia, cytosis, and philia. All righty? Now, last time that we mentioned, two of these things mean an increase. Two of these words, two of these endings mean an increase. That would be cytosis and philia, an increase in a particular type of blood cell. That'd be a monocytophilia, monocytopenia, okay, excuse me, monocytosis. So whenever that the word ends in cytosis or philia, it's an increase. Penia is a decrease. An eosinopenia, leukopenia, general increase right there, okay? I want to add two other words to these right here. Cytic and chromic. This is going to refer to the red blood cell. Cytic and chromic. C-H-R-O-M-I-C, C-Y-T-I-C. Now, cytic and chromic are going to have prefixes, mega and micro, okay? And this is going to refer to the size. This refers to the cell size. Mainly the red blood cell, mainly the red blood cell. Don't ever remember referring to a leukocyte at all. So these are restricted to the red blood cell. So micro and micro would be the prefixes of these right here. Microcytic would be a small one. Micro, I have to say micro because micro sounds like micro. Microcytic means a small one, macrocytic means a large one. Now, chromic refers to the color. Micro, micro, cytic size, chromic color. We talk about these when we talk about different types of anemia. The size of the red blood cells. So I want to add those two words to these three that you already have down here. Okay? Now, the three functions of the platelets. Platelet plug is one of them. There's several functions, about 4 or 5 functions listed in here. But I picked on the platelet plug. We've got to have that for the hemostasis, for the loss of blood to be stopped for a little bit later on. The formation of the platelet plug is the formation of the function of the platelet that we have right here. The use of ADP, just write down use of ADP, I'll come back to that. Excuse me a second. Okay? And it's got something to do with calcium. Now, I don't know if it's calcium storage or not. It also just mentions calcium. Calcium is needed for the blood to clot. So platelets are involved with calcium formation. Silly, isn't it? You don't make calcium, so what the hell is the formation of it? In the utilization of calcium in the blood clotting scheme, okay? So we got calcium, we got the role of ADP, we got the platelet plug. 3 functions. As I say, there's more in there. If you don't like these, pick out something else. Okay? So hemostasis is just preventing blood loss. A tourniquet. Hemostats. Blood clotting scheme. Anything to prevent blood loss is just a definition of hemostasis. Now, I'm not going to worry about the 3 steps in the vascular phase of hemostasis, okay? But I will take a look at the next one. How does a platelet plug form? Well, it's interesting that the platelet, the parent cell of the platelet is a megakaryocyte. I want you to know that. Megakaryocyte, okay? Comes from the name because the sucker has a lot of karyotypes in it, okay? Megakaryocyte. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each one of those circles inside the large circle is the cell of the megakaryocyte. Karyotype refers to the DNA complement. Mega being more than diploid, more than tetraploid, more than 4N. Sometimes these damn things are 16N. This refers to the nucleus 16N. Cytoplasm divides, but the nucleus never does. I don't care if you know that or not. I'll show the parent cell of the platelet is a megakaryocyte, okay? Now when a platelets are extruded, and the platelet is just a pinched off piece of cytoplasm, the circle looks like a little half moon. It's just a fragment. It looks like a stained precipitate on a blood smear. You say, oh, that's an artifact. That's nothing else. Well, those little dots right there are the platelets. The white blood cell would be about as big, a monocyte would be about as big as a board right there. And that would be the size of the platelet itself. Now, the platelet has got to form a plug. For it to plug, there's a complicated term here. I want you to listen. sticky ends is what occurs in the shape change. So there's a shape change of the plate that goes from smooth, from this crescent shape right here, to something that's round, something that has sticky ends on it. I don't know about the round shape. You can draw it like this if you like. But there's a shape change because of the ends, the cytoplasmic extensions occur. There's a shape change because sticky ends form on the platelets, and these allow them to stick together to form a platelet plug. That's important. Okay? Now, how is the homeostasis of the platelet plug maintained? Well, what I wrote down right here, I had to look at this right here. The formation is activated by ADP. The formation is activated by ADP. So the ADP that the platelets contain, that's one of the components that I listed right there, or mentioned, aids in the formation of the platelet plug. But you got to have homeostasis. You got to have, if you way to form it, that's the way to form it. You got to have a way to break the damn thing down. Just like anything. You make it, you break it down. You make it, you break it down, okay? There is a serotonin. Serotonin helps to break down the platelet plug. Serotonin breaks down the platelet plug. So the homeostasis is the formation involves the use of ADP to form the sticky ends. Serotonin is involved in the breakdown of the platelet plug. That's what I want you to know right there, okay? Okay, now, the clotting scheme itself. I have figure 19-2. My page 662, yours are probably 682 or somewhere in there. So take a look at figure 19-12. It's got 4 phases on here. It's got a vascular phase, a platelet phase, coagulation phase, and a clot retraction phase. I want to take a look at the third component of this, the coagulation phase, okay? So hang in here with me. We got 3 components to this coagulation phase. I'm going to draw it a little bit different because it's the way I learned it, all right? But the components are still the same. Components are still the same. Now, several different ways to initiate a blood clot itself. We have an intrinsic phase and an extrinsic phase. Intrinsic, INTRINSIC, and an extrinsic, EXTRENSIC. Okay, now, the intrinsic is going to be primarily the collagen that makes up the cells that line all our blood vessels. Those are the endothelial cells. So a damaged endothelial cell exposes a collagen in the cell membrane, and that activates the clotting scheme, okay? I want you to know the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic. Extrinsic over here is a more severe. That's tough to have a blood clot form from a damaged endothelial cell without having damage outside the endothelial cell. I know that. So most of these clot formations are going to involve tissue. So there's tissue factors released when tissue is damaged that initiates the blood clotting scheme. More than likely, that's what's going to cause most of our blood clots anyway. Because like I say, it's really tough to just damage an endothelial cell itself. Okay, now, I'm going to list the proteins involved. From my intrinsic over here, 12, 8, and 9, 12, 8, and 9, these are my clotting proteins, 12, 8, and 9. Clotting proteins. Now, at the bottom of this page right here, we have these factors, 12, 8, and 9 right here. 12 is a Hagman factor made in the liver right there. Pathway, intrinsic, you know, I'm not going to actually know the name, but factor 12, factor 8, factor 9 are involved in the intrinsic. The extrinsic right here is factor 3 and factor 7. This is what I want you to write down. Factor 3 and factor 7. Now, in this clotting scheme, it really is important that we understand the mechanism of the action right here, okay? Let's say that. Let's say that for an example right here. The factor 12 right here is activated first by exposure, since this is the intrinsic exposure to the collagen from the endothelial cell. Factor 12 is inactive. Factor 12, I can write 12 better than that. Factor 12 is inactivated. 1, 2, inactive. 1, 2, active. Now, we have these proteins in our blood all the time. For the most part, they are in an inactive form, an inactive shape. What activates them is exposure to collagen in the intrinsic factor, exposure to tissue, damaged tissue cells in the extrinsic right there, okay? So let's say that, just for the heck of it right here, 12 inactive is converted to 12 active by exposure to the collagen. 12 active right here is going to convert 8 inactive to 8 active. 8 active converts 9 inactive to 9 active, okay? That's the clotting scheme itself. So I want you to write down intrinsic and extrinsic. Give me a difference between a definition for each one of them. Tell me factors 12, 8, and 9 are intrinsic, 3 and 7 are extrinsic right here. Now let's go to the common pathway. We got to get the common pathway activated to have a blood clot right here. Intrinsic, extrinsic, this is my common. Damn it. M-M-O-N. This is my common pathway right here. Well, if you take a look at the blue, mine is blue right here, I guess yours would be too right here. Let's take a look at the bottom of it right here. The bottom of the clotting scheme involves the formation of fibrin strands. So fibrinogen is converted to fibrin. Fibrin is the actual, like the laces on a tennis racket that traps the cells. So the fibrin is the actual blood clot itself. So here I'm going to have fibrin forming. All right? Fibrin comes from an inactivator called fibrinogen. F-I-B-R-I-N-O-G-E-N. All right? Now, what converts fibrinogen to fibrin? So you take a look on this scheme right here. That's what we call thrombin. Thrombin. It converts fibrinogen to thrombin. T-H-R-O-M-B-I-N. I can write thrombin. Thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin. Well, what it converts to thrombin right here. So I have prothrombin. Prothrombin is converted to thrombin right here. Okay, now, what converts prothrombin to thrombin right here? It's going to be factor 10. I know we have